carried it, picked up, carried it out.
Gina, you ready? I'd like to call the November 22nd, 2021 regular board meeting for the town of Aberdeen into order. And there are agendas on the table when you came in if you would like an agenda. And if you would like to speak on any of the items tonight, if you would please fill out one of these requests to speak so we'll know who you are and what item you might want to be speaking about. And I have two already. If anyone else would like one, they're on the table back there. Turn it into the clerk. With that said, I want to welcome everybody on a chilly night. We do have the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you can, please stand. Thank you. I'll close out number one and we'll go to number two, which is setting of the agenda.
Mayor, there are no changes, but I will give the board a heads up that under public hearings, new business, 7, item D, it was an advertised zoning matter, and there has been a request to continue that until, we'll talk to Mr. Westbrook when that comes up, but either the December meeting or even the January meeting. And, but since it was, public advertised, we'll need to call the item and then continue it. But I wanted to let the board know that the applicant has requested that for their own reasons, not ours, their own reasons to do that. And if anybody's here on that item, just a heads up that it's, again, it's a board decision, but unlikely it's going to go forward tonight.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
I'll second.
There was a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Close out two and go to number 3. Consent agenda. All items listed below are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and have been enacted and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held except on request by a member of the Board of Commissioners. A, consider approval of minutes of regular board meeting October 25, 2021, and work session of November 8, 2021. B, consider approval of proclamation for Digital Inclusion Month. C, consider approval of resolution number 21-35, releasing security for Sandy Springs Phase 4A for sidewalks in the amount of $70,542.50. D, consider approval of resolution number 21-36, adopting and amending financial policies for the town of Aberdeen relating to federal procurement and federal conflict of interest requirements. E, consider approval of amendments to the Sportsplex Park project ordinance to recognize new revenues approved by the state of North Carolina adjusted to expenses. F, consider approval of amendment to the ARPA General Project Grant Ordinance to remove $200,000. G, consider approval of amendment to the ARPA Water Sewer Project Grant Ordinance to add $200,000. H, consider approval of lease of up to 5 years by the town of Aberdeen for the building and facilities located at 124 North Poplar Street, now used as temporary office for the police department. And we need a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent.
I second it.
consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. We'll close out 3. And we will go to item number 4, informal discussion and public comment. And let's see, oh, excuse me. I don't think I have anyone that's turned in one for public comment. Anyone here would like to speak on any item tonight or what's going on in town? We have an open forum and a microphone if you would like to come up and speak. I hope everyone has, since it is public hearing, informal discussion, public comment, hope everyone's seen the lights downtown on the buildings, the Christmas lights. This is the second year we've done this, and it looks wonderful. So, anyone else? If not, I'll close out 4 and go to number 5, manager's report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. As always, you've got your written version of this report on your desk, and I'll just give you a summary on it. Mr. Watson will give you, following this report, he'll give you the monthly financial report, which, again, is strong, so it's a good, favorable report. And also I'll add part of the general report, but we did get the audit is complete and has been submitted to LGC. As I mentioned, I think last week to the board, it's a good audit, it's a good report. Butch maybe had to give you a heads up if you got anything scheduled for the presentation by DHG to present the audit. You know, they're going to shoot for either the meeting in December or January meeting to present that. But again, Mayor, it's a good report, a good strong fund balance. So I think the board will enjoy when that is available, and certainly we'll send that on. We have a good version of it. Typically, they'll get us a hard copy a few days before the actual meeting. So good news on that front. You've got the standard department reports, monthly reports contained therein, and then a few other general items, Mayor. So I don't get to say this often, but the project with the police facility is complete. Right, Philip? Nothing changed today? So, Mayor, you know, it's been several years in coming. So, I mean, there's always a few things to finish, but the CO was issued end of last week. The police department is largely moved from the facility across the street into the new facility. They are operating from the new facility with, you know, phones, IT, all the electronics. There'll obviously be some time to get everything settled and making sure it's working to their satisfaction, get used to the facility. But it's been a great project, and you know, we don't have all the final bills in, but we do expect the project to come in under budget by, we think, close to $100,000, including both all the hard cost and the soft cost, which would include the furniture and other furnishings for the building. That remains to be seen, but we think it's going to be in that ballpark when we're there. So now that that's complete, the only thing that we're still waiting on, which probably won't come as a big surprise, is the statue out front. There's a good chance that will be delivered and installed early or this week. I think it's doubtful. Early the week after that is what we're hoping for. And with that in mind, Mayor, just given the schedule and how things get busy later in December that you go before Christmas, we would like to have the open house, as we talked about earlier today. if the board is okay with it, we'd like to have the open house a week from this Wednesday, which would be December 1st, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And the idea would be to have that time open. I know the mayor and a few others would like to make a few remarks to welcome the facility. We'd have some light refreshment at the building, probably in the main meeting room inside the building, and have it open for walkthroughs for the public. And we'll certainly send out invitations to, a lot of our counterparts in other towns and other departments to invite them to be there, and we'll post it accordingly on different social media outlets so the public can plan to attend to take a look at the facility. And I know most of y'all have been there at some form in the last few months, but it really has come together the last few months with all the finishes, and now that it is occupied, it's a fine facility. So Mayor, if there's not any objection to moving forward with that date, we'll start sending out the electronic invitations tomorrow.
Does that work for everybody? December 1. And this is open to the public, so
Yes, sir.
if anyone here tonight would like to attend this opening of the new police department, please do. It's from 4 to 6 on December 1. And anyone that's listening at home, please, you're welcome to come and see what we've done up there. And it's a magnificent facility, so I hope everyone can get a chance to come up and see what it looks like. Anything else?
Mayor, just a couple other quick things. And again, just another good week at the Sportsplex. That project is fine, got some momentum. So again, we're pushing along there. So, we're still hoping to have the building completed and have the tenant moved in there sometime in January now, and, have the fields done sometime in that same time frame. I say done, at least sodded in that time frame. I think realistically, you know how it goes this time of year. Things start to slow down a little bit this week, and then we get another few weeks of work, which we're going to push hard to get a lot done in early December, and then things slow down again in the later part of December, just with the holidays. So we're going to try to get as much work during that time frame as we can out of the different contractors. Also, Mayor, the purchase contract for the old Aberdeen Elementary School, that is set to close in mid-December. We do have all the field work completed for both the Phase 1 environmental with no problems and also with the survey. So we don't have the written reports yet on either of those, but they seem to be done on time. So we think we're moving along fine with that, with those documents, which is essentially, our burden to carry that before the closing. On the agenda tonight is the budget amendment to fund the purchase at that time, which is as expected, no surprises there. And but everything's moving forward. So it is a big undertaking, and once we get control of that facility, we're going to have to figure out a few things in terms of its ongoing maintenance, and then obviously for another meeting, but we'll work through our long-term plan of how to get that property developed in the right manner that I think this board has envisioned for some time now, in a positive way that fits the site, but also is a nice addition to the town of Aberdeen, along with the refurbishing of both the gym and the auditorium. So a good project, a good positive thing, and we hope to be moving forward with that. And just in time, when we finish one project, we have another one to take its place, and it'll be maybe not quite as active, but I think on our end, in terms of putting things together, it might be actually more active, because we won't just have a contractor to rely on. We'd be doing a lot of this in-house. Not the actual work, but the actual organization and contracting ourselves, Mayor. And that's all I have on my report. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address those.
Any questions? Thank you. So I'll close out number 5 and go to number 6, which is financial report. Mr. Watson.
Sorry. Thank you for allowing me to come tonight. Talk a little bit about October and what we have year-to-date for November, which is not on the memo, but I have these numbers from this morning. Take a look at the general fund. we were at end of October, approximately $6,215,000 revenues compared to budget of $10,918,000. Expenditures, $3,857,000. So a net income at the time of $2,357,000. As a reminder, we got a large payment prior month for property taxes, as long as everybody remembers that. And because it will begin to go down next April, May, and June. So if you take a look at the percent collected expensed, we were at 56.92% collected and what we expensed out. Sorry, did not put that up there. There we go. Very lively. But if you take a look at what we had collected, 56.92%, collected expense 35.33%. So if you look at those numbers today through November on a percentage basis, we got 61.18% collected through this morning, expense is through this afternoon, 41.10%, which includes payroll on Wednesday. That's already included in those numbers. So in the banking world, that's a spread of about 20%. That's very good at this time of year. If you look at some of the highlights, you'll see that our real and personal property taxes are at 79.28%. The motor vehicle tax revenue is at 31.72%. The fire real and property tax revenue is at 35.96%. Corporate fee revenue 64.26%. Building permit revenue 14.97%. ABC net revenue is 90.85%. Sales tax revenue for 2 months was 21.54%. Utility franchise tax revenue 23.17%, and power bill revenue a little over 50%. As of today, real and personal property taxes 81.39%. Motor vehicles is 41.20%. There's no change in the fire because that comes in usually on a quarterly basis. Corporate fee revenues hasn't built until the next billing cycle will be a little bit later. Building permit revenue is up to 20.33%. No change in ABC net revenue. Sales taxes for 3 months with 32.14% for 3 months already. So that's $767,000 we've collected for 3 months. Utility franchise tax as well as the power bill has not changed since end of October. So that's a very good report. So probably in February, March, I'll give you an update on detail more on sales tax as it progresses on, kind of put the chart together like I did before. Any questions on general fund? Water and sewer fund, revenues through end of October, $2,192,000, expenditures, $1,383,000, $585,000. We had 53.10% revenues, 38.40%, and expenses. Some highlights there, water and sewer revenues was at 19.73% of end of October. As of today, it's 31.88%. Water and sewer revenues, 57, the light's not too good up here, 37.39%, there's no change. Water and sewer tap revenue, it was at 56.54%. Today it's 71.26%. Boiled water, 64.23%. End of October, no change as of today. Any questions on that? So if you take a look at the general fund and water sewer fund, I did this a little bit different this month because the capital projects, I wanted to separate those going forward. It is on the second page. So if you take a look at the water and sewer combined revenues, we're at $8,407,000, expenditures $5,442,000. That's a 55.87% revenues, 36.17% expenses through October. if you take a look at the numbers through today, just on a percentage basis, 59.18% revenues for those two funds. Expenditures 41.55% revenues. Again, that includes payroll as of Wednesday, including Wednesday, longevity checks last week, and we have not reimbursed ourselves back from Lumbee River for the 538, 600,000 for the fire truck yet, revenue. So that will increase when we get that, and that will probably happen within the next 30 days for that. So that's the end of the operating fund. Any questions on the total?
Anyone? Great report.
All right, second page. So what I did was I separated the three capital project funds that are active. We've got the police project, which you heard a little bit about, Sportsplex, and the DOT fund. I'm not going to go over these individually, but you'll see on the police station project, it shows we're $114,000 negative. Well, that's because we're waiting to make a draw from the bank to pay ourselves back. Plus, we're also waiting for a lot of the furniture purchases and all that we've already paid for. We'll get all that back at the end. So we would probably close this fund out probably February, if they come through. That's what I'm looking at right now. And again, as the manager said, we hopefully we're going to save around $100,000 on that project. Wow. On the Sportsplex, again, it's the same thing. We did a $300,000 transfer at the end of last year. The board approved that. Plus, they had a contribution at the beginning of the project of $1,000, and we got the expenditures we've spent. So we'll make a point in time, if the budget allows, we're going to make that transfer as well to catch itself up, kind of keep it level as we go through. And then the last one is the NC 211 project. As a reminder, that's where the state's going to reimburse us for those engineering fees, but we have to pay that first, give them the paperwork, and then give the cycle through. So that's in the process now to get that first payment back. And we've also spent, since that time, that $9,000 extra. That's where you see that. So overall, on the capital projects that are active, we're at $4,856,000, which includes the large one, the police station, and the expenditures are $5,079,000. And so we're keeping it pretty level, 69.31% revenues, 72.49 expenditures. Again, with those capital projects, they're multi-year, so that's okay to do that as long as you stay within budget. That's my update for the quarterly. I will provide an update the first meeting in December, so we won't have a second meeting in December as that time, so it may not be as lively as this one, but I'll give you the numbers I have at that time. And also to the manager's comment, I talked to the chief partner with DHG. He will be here next meeting. Present the audit information.
That's a great report.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Any questions while we are on that one? Anyone? All right, close out 6 and go to number 7. These are public hearings and new business. A, request for annexation submitted by Moore HL Properties and Karen Robertson for 37.169 acres located east Bethesda Road near E.L. Ives Drive. And this is a public hearing.
Good evening, Board. As the Mayor mentioned, this is an annexation for the Bethesda Pines subdivision. Applicants are Moore HL Properties as well as Karen Robertson, who are the owners of the properties. Annexation is for 2 different parcels located between Devonshire Trail and Paint Hill Road on the east side of Bethesda. They're identified in your packet in the annexation survey. Total, the parcels represent 37.169 acres. This is a rough estimate by GIS of where the property is located. You can see the one that says out in both of it, that's the parent tract, and then you have a smaller tract that's looks like a little pork chop in the middle of it. Both of those are the 2 parcels in question. You can see the current corporate limits being in blue. and with the in and out indicators of which ones need to go in and which ones don't, or the corporate limits and what's inside and what's not, what's outside. And these are the parcels in question. The zoning, again, they're currently represented as R20, with PIDs represented on your screen. It is considered contiguous as it does directly abut the town of Aberdeen's corporate limits. Again, these are the parcels. Everything shaded in the hatched area is considered ETJ, or extraterritorial jurisdiction. You can see that the zoning is already in place for that. Voluntary annexation, there are a couple of review criteria. We've already covered this with this town clerk's sufficiency review of does it bear the signatures of all landowners, which we deemed it did, and is it annexed, is it adequately served by the same municipal services provided by the town's corporate limits, which we confirmed it did. Also, the debt obligations from the service and subject to land do not exceed revenues from the town, and the public health and safety and welfare of the town residents and the lands proposed of the annexation will be in the best interest of the annexation. Staff's recommendation is that we currently believe that it does bear the signature of all landowners within the area to be annexed. It can be adequately served by the same municipal services provided by the town within the town's corporate limits. It does not exceed the anticipated revenues for the town and will be in the best interest of the town and served by the annexation. As such, there's one motion. There is the applicant, Mr. Travis Green of Legacy Home Construction, which is part of Moore HL, who's here to answer any questions should you have any, and I'm here as well.
Mr. Green, would you like to speak?
Thank you. I am Travis Green, Legacy Home Construction, representing Moore HL Properties tonight. I don't have much to add over what Justin spoke about. I'm happy to answer any questions or address any comments that you might have.
Anyone?
So Bethesda Pines, that's the name of the subdivision or whatever
Yes,
you're calling it? It's going to be built, how many homes are going to go in there?
That's to be determined as a preliminary plat is gone with TRC. So the question tonight is just whether we annex these properties or not.
I've lived over there for a long time, and I always thought that was in the town of Aberdeen. I did not know it was not till this started. Did anybody know that property? Did you know that property next door was not in the town of Aberdeen? Oh, you had, okay. Well, up until now, that's what I mean. Yeah, well, welcome to Aberdeen if we get through this tonight, so we'll see. Any other questions? Anybody? Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? This is a public hearing. Is anyone here tonight wants to speak on this one item? The annexation request. Anyone? All right, nobody wants to speak. I'm going to close that part of it. And then we'll go to consider approval of annexation number 49-121.
Make a motion that we approve the voluntary annexation of AN-2104, number 49-121.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion further from the board? Anyone? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. We'll go to number B. Zoning map amendment ZA-2101 submitted by Tony Murchison. Request includes one parcel ID 000468843, totaling approximately .054 acres, located at 361 Glasgow Street.
Yes, sir. So this is a zoning map amendment, ZA 2101. It is looking at one parcel over off Glasgow Street that's currently zoned heavy industrial, and the applicant and the property owner wish to rezone it to R10. As such, it is one parcel, 361 Glasgow. It's roughly .544 acres. It's got 150 feet of frontage along Glasgow. It's currently undeveloped and is adjacent to R10, and it also is obviously adjacent to heavy industrial. It's generally flat and adjacent to wooded area. Heavy industrial zoning district is for heavy manufacturing, assembly manufacturing, fabrication, processing, distribution, storage, research, and the like. The adjacent zoning property, obviously you have R10 currently to the south, which is a single-family residence. And then you have to the northeast and west heavy industrial, which has either vacant properties, daycare, for example. The property to the north is the Head Start that I believe the town of Aberdeen owns. And then to the west is some minor manufacturing. And again, to the south with the R10, you do have a single-family detached dwelling. It's not in the watershed nor floodplain. This is the property located right here, highlighted in blue. You can see the proximity to heavy industrial to the northeast and west, and R10 to the south and around the corner. You have Glasgow Street that runs north to south, and 15501, and the big road that runs east to west is in C211. Kind of give you a familiarity. The black dashed line is the current corporate limits. The Glasgow Street currently serves as a residential corridor. It's sandwiched between some R10 and some HI to the north and the south and the west. The current standards for residential single-family 10 is 10,000 square foot lot sizes and the like in front of you. That's our basic R10 dimensional standards. Again, the minimum lot area doesn't really matter in this case because we're not creating a new lot, but the lot width, and the same thing goes with lot width, but any new structure will have to meet the side setbacks, the rear of the street and the street side, as well as max building height. But again, currently the property is vacant. The principal use table allows by right uses that are in R10, but it's very limited. It only includes one commercial use type and no industrial use classification types. It does include a handful of institutional use types, such as churches, religious institutions, assemblies, and very minor uses like that. And obviously, R10 does include residential uses. This is a very comprehensive list of everything that's allowed by right in HI as it currently is zoned, and it does span a pretty wide gamut from agricultural all the way to institutional, commercial, and obviously industrial use types. So this property could be very simply a recycling center. It could very well be a wholesale major or minor, and so the applicant is looking to rezone it to R10. The R10 is frankly just to accommodate principal single-family detached dwellings at a density of 10,000 square feet lots in addition. Now, it does behoove me to let you all know that the next item on the case, on the docket tonight, is a special use permit for this exact same property and this exact same applicant. And the applicant is looking to establish a daycare center use type on this property, which is allowed by right in residential single-family, well, let me rephrase. It's allowed with a special use permit in the R10. It is not allowed at all in heavy industrial. So example, the Head Start to the north is considered a non-conforming use type currently. So that could not be expanded or added to any other HI zoning district. So that's the purpose of the R10. The question in front of us tonight right now is just whether we want to see this go to R10 or not, but there will be a special use permit that will be handled later this evening. As such, the R10, obviously, you can see, comparatively speaking, there's a lot less uses that are allowed by right or with special use permit for R10. You can see most of them are in the green residential area. There are a handful of institutional type use classifications and use types, such as religious institutional, public recreation facilities and the like. And obviously in commercial, the only one that's allowed with a special use permit is a bed and breakfast. Outside that, there are no other uses. This is a straight zoning, so there will not be conditions attached to it either by the board or the applicant. And as such, they are just asking for what's in front of you right now on this chart. The site plan will be required under the transportation tab by the technical review committee when the applicant submits full civil drawings for their any improvements to be made on the property. And at that point, staff will address traffic concerns, ingress, egress, and driveway locations. Also with the TIA, a development guide requires that once you get 600 trips per day by a traffic generation study, that a TIA will be required. At this point, not knowing all of the applicant's requests, staff is very, very pessimistic that any TIA will be required due to the limited amount of trips that this property will see, should it be built out to the applicant's desire. Again, is it consistent with our plans? Our current future land use map, which is nestled under the Comprehensive Land Development Plan, which was adopted in 2019, actually does identify this property to be medium density residential for future land uses, which fits very nicely in the R10 zoning district, not so much in HI. This is the future land use map. It's very, very complicated, and I apologize, I can't zoom in anymore due to the data that we received from the client or the consultant that helped create the future land use map, but in blue that's kind of flashing very, very small is 361 Glasgow, and you can see it's highlighted in that orange, which is considered medium-density residential. The gray area obviously is industrial, so it does fit very nicely into our adopted town policy guidance. We do believe that the use type allowed in a residential district would be consistent with the requested zoning map amendment, which is the question in front of us right now. We do also believe that it fits 4 goals of the comprehensive land development plan beyond the future land use plan, such as that the Aberdeen will consider the impact on our future as a progressive, welcoming, stable community, and will emphasize involvement in its citizens and decision-making process. Per all our zoning map amendments, we are required by law and our own UDO to advertise this property in the pilot for consecutive weeks, as well as post the property with a sign, as well as send out notices. The state requires us to send out notices to 100 feet to all residents or all property owners and tenants, so we send double letters sometimes, within 100 feet. The UDO actually goes above and beyond that and sends them out to 300 feet. Goal 6, Aberdeen will consider preservation of residential neighborhoods. Again, it's a vacant lot currently, but with the R10 allowable special use permits as well as their by right, staff feels that that's consistent. And number 7, we support infill development. And infill development is very simply defined as vacant properties already existent with adjacent services being built on without additional infrastructure being required. It also fits 2 of our strategies in that comprehensive land development plan, which is revitalization of the Berkeley community, which this resolves in, as well as support infill development within Moore County. The zoning map amendment, again, is basically, for the glorified term, is rezoning. It's to change the official zoning map whenever the public necessity, general welfare, and the town's adopted policy guidance or appropriate land use practices justify. The procedural process for this is that the board must consider, is this request consistent with our adopted plans? Is it reasonable and in the public's best interest? Again, going back over what we've done, we did post it for the planning board, but we do also mail notices and publish a notice for the Board of Commissioners. And that kind of gives you a rundown of when and why we do it. And then the planning board did hear this at their October 2021 meeting. They recommended approval 7-0, and the applicant and general contractor were in attendance at the October meeting and answered any questions the planning board had. To go back to those 4 criteria that the board must consider, our recommendations, staff being that we feel that it is consistent with the future land use map and town adopted policy guidance. We also feel that this request is in the public interest and reasonable for the comprehensive land development plan goals and objectives, and those are the motions. The applicant is here. I take that back. The applicant is not with us tonight. However, his representative, Mr. Perry Johnson of Gaddis Construction, is here representing him. He has signed up in front of you, Mr. Mayor, to speak. He's available for any questions you may have of him, as well as I.
Mr. Johnson, would you like to speak?
No, sir, no. Unless anyone has any questions.
Anyone, any questions while we have you're the contractor?
Yes, sir.
Anyone?
This property is adjacent to the Head Start
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
building, because I pass there every day. So it's basically, right now, like a wooded lot.
It's a
And then there's
vacant lot.
then there's a fenced-in area. It doesn't go as far as where that fenced area would be, or is that part of the property?
He owns the property that's fenced in.
That's
Yes, ma'am,
fenced in.
And the residential house beside of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would
No,
go
I
up
think-
as far as the area that's got the fence around it. It would be in that location.
It'll be in that location,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Anyone? This is a public hearing. On the map that you have up there is 361 Glasgow. Where is the Head Start?
Directly north, it's the very large triangle orange-shaped piece directly north of it.
Where it says HI?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is the existing residential single-family that is related to the applicant. This is the vacant lot with the fence that Commissioner Beavers was describing, and this is the HI Head Start property that I believe is under the town ownership, if I'm not mistaken.
The little sliver at the top that abuts 211, what is that zoned as?
It's zoned heavy industrial. Everything orange is heavy industrial.
So the Head Start's in heavy industrial?
Yes, sir. It's currently a non-conforming use.
Hmm.
You know, I don't know if you've gone up that area or not, but I go up there every week, and going up, you pass a Head Start, and then that lot is vacant on the left-hand side. The right-hand side is probably where that heavy industry is, but if you're going straight up, it's the Head Start, vacant lot, house, and then the church is on the very end. So actually, it would fit nicely in that area.
Any others? This is public hearing. Anyone else? Thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, I'm ready. He was getting back to the screen.
If I can, before we dive into the motions, 160D, in talking with town attorney, we want to make sure we're very clear on the state law. When making the first two motions, the first motion is it's consistent or not consistent with adopted policy guidance. Whoever makes that motion has to explain why they feel it's consistent. Simply stating staff report, the presentation or anything like that is not sufficient according to state law and case law. So anybody who makes that motion has got to articulate why they feel it is either consistent or not consistent with adopted policy guidance. Another note on that, if you feel like it's not, and this doesn't necessarily apply to this situation because staff does feel that it's consistent, but if y'all do feel that it's not consistent for whatever reason, that does not necessarily mean that the request has failed. You can deny one motion or even the second motion and still approve the plan, and that's perfectly okay. The adopted policy guidance is just that, guidance. Y'all are allowed to change it or go against it. Just make sure you're very articulate on why you're going against it or why you support it. Same thing goes with motion 2, which is the reasonable and in the public interest. Whoever makes that motion needs to make sure that it is indicates why or why not they feel it's reasonable in the public interest. And again, deferring to the staff report or the presentation is not clearly definable because that does not make it into the minutes. It's all about making sure the motion is in the minutes of the record per state law. Now, motion 3 is straight up or down approval or denial, and that needs no special caveat. I just want to be very clear that it's, with 160D, it's kind of changed and tweaked a little bit.
And Mayor, on that point, I mean, really to simplify it, you know, part of the rationale for the motion, you can actually just read something from the staff report materials. Just more than just a general reference to it, just you can read the sentence from there or a portion of it, and it doesn't have to be the exact same statement, but usually the staff materials, in this case it certainly does, has reasons why it would be appropriate, and you just have to kind of pick a few of those items or one of those items as part of your motion. Just want to clarify that, and that would be true for all of the motions that are there. You can just borrow language from that staff report specifically without just a general referral to it. And I just want to make sure, I think you asked me, just make sure there's no one, I don't think anybody walked in during the presentation, make sure there's no one else here who wants to speak in the neighborhood. I don't think so, but I saw a few people know.
Before we close the public hearing's closed, if there's anybody that we've already gone past that, I think, hadn't we? Did we close we hadn't closed, okay, anyone else want to speak on this item? All right, hearing none. Then we're at, I'll close out 1 and go to 2, consider approval of zoning map amendment Z8-2101.
I'll make a motion that zoning map, the amendment is consistent with adopted policy guidance of town of Aberdeen.
Okay.
Up, you got to say why.
Actually, it's good for the area, it's good for the, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Does that work? Probably need some more.
I would just recommend that you
Vibration.
just say that that the requested rezoning is compatible with other properties nearby.
Okay.
Future land use map, the goals, the strategies, all of that's consistent. That's, as the town manager mentioned, the request or the motion needs to get into the minutes. The staff report does not get into the minutes. So whatever you dictate on why you're voting one way or the other, or why you're making the motion one way or the other, has got to be articulated in the minutes for it to be legal. So you can certainly borrow from any of the language in the staff report or anything I said tonight.
Okay, continue revitalization of the Berkeley community. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And there is a second. Further discussion? Anyone? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then the second part is C.
Motion number 2. We have 3 motions for this. I apologize.
Zoning map amendment, 021-1 is reasonable, it's in the public interest.
And we do need we do need some support for that.
It's in the public interest, for the same reason that it's revitalization of the community. Okay.
That second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
Now, this is the easy one. No justifications needed.
I make a motion for approval of zoning map amendment ZA 21-01.
I'll second it.
There's a first and a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor and the board, this is the second part of the request. As I mentioned in the first part for the zoning map amendment, the second part was going to be a special use permit to allow a daycare center use type to be allowed. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it was not allowed at all, whether it be by special use permit or by right for the heavy industrial, but it is allowed with a special use permit once it's zoned R10, which you all just did. As such, again, Mr. Murchison is the applicant, with Mr. Perry Johnson from Gaddis Construction being here serving as his proxy. The parcel in question, again, is 361 Glasgow Street, was just zoned heavy industrial, is now currently zoned R10. Again, 0.544 acres. Residential single family, again, is single family detached dwellings for property for 10,000 square feet per lots. The vacant zoning, some of this is all the same use types that we previously showed you. Same property we previously showed you. Again, it's the blue flashing dash line. A special use permit is granted, then additional use specific standards applied prior to issuance of building permit. A daycare center has additional use standards that will be looked at by the technical review committee when a site plan comes in from the applicant, such as setbacks, distances from, it could be a number of different things. I don't know them off the top of my head, I apologize. But for example, a use specific standard, an example for that would be a bar or a restaurant serving alcohol, their proximity to a residential property. Now, again, this is not the same thing, but play areas, their locations, their proximity to residents and things of that nature will probably come into play with the use-specific standards, and I can look those up if you'll have questions. But again, that will be looked at by the site plan, or during the site plan by the technical review committee. Well, here they are. So the additional use standards are the applicant will have to seek and receive state licensing requirements, have street frontage on a street classified higher than a residential local, has no access from residential local unless the use is located on a corner. We don't consider Glasgow to be residential local, it's residential sub-collector. Outdoor recreation areas shall be located behind the front of the principal buildings, completed and enclosed in the fence at least 4 feet in height, and segregated from parking, loading, and service areas. And any outdoor recreation areas adjacent to residential district must have an opaque fence, wall, or other method as described in the UDO of at least 6 feet above grade. So to protect the existing R10 in the neighborhood, that'll have to be met as well. And again, if located in a residential district, sign is limited to 1 monument sign, max of 24 square feet. So a small billboard would not be appropriate. As such, the site plan, again, will be looked at by the technical review committee when one is submitted to us, as well as the subsequent building permit, which will be only issued once the site plan has been approved, but both are required for a daycare center use type. And when the property develops, staff will look at, through the site plan process, the traffic concerns, ingress, egress, and driveways. The consistency with plan, again, which was adopted in 2019, the future land use map, medium density residential, which as a special use permit is allowed or required for a daycare center Staff considers that to be consistent, and the parcel under consideration would be consistent with our other adopted policy guidance as well. Again, it's 6 goals for this specific request. Consider the impact for Aberdeen's future as progressive, welcoming, and stable. Emphasize involvement in the citizens and decision-making process. Through land development ordinance and inventory of options for industrial and business development. Consider preservation of residential neighborhoods and decision-making process. Supports infill development. And continuously support improvements to the educational system serving the town, which are 2 additional goals, number 8 and number 5, for the specific request. And again, the 2 strategies, continued revitalization of the Berkeley community and support infill development within Moore County. Again, a special use permit is specifically for a use that may be appropriate in a zoning district, such as R10, but because of its nature, extent, and external effects, require special consideration by the Board of Commissioners with regard to location, design, and methods of operation before it can be deemed appropriate and compatible with its surroundings. They do seek a recommendation by the Planning Board and the Board of Commissioners for issuance of the application, complies with other provisions of the UDO, and any conditions of approval shall meet or exceed the minimum requirements of the UDO. So for example, y'all cannot place a condition on a special use permit that undercuts the UDO. If the UDO requires, for example, 6-foot tall fences adjacent to residential areas, y'all don't have the authority to go lower. You can go higher, but you can't go lower. All conditions of the approval shall be expressly set forth in the notice of decision or development permit approval. So when you make those motions, if there are conditions that y'all would like to seek, obviously the applicant would need to sign off on those, but they need to be part of your motion as well. The review standards for a special use permit does it material endanger the public health or safety if it's located where proposed? Does it comply with all required standards, conditions, and specs of the UDO, particularly including Chapter 4 uses, which come back to that use-specific standards? Will it substantially injure the value of abutting property or the special use is a public necessity? Number 4, will it be in harmony with the area to which it's located? And number 5, is it generally conforming with the town's adopted policy guidance? Again, very similar to the zoning map amendment, so we did send multiple letters out for these cases, 4 per property, that we do notice the property by putting a sign on the property for Planning Board and Board of Commissioners. And for the hearing for the Board of Commissioners, we also mail the notices, again, beyond the 100 feet that state requires, we go 300, as well as publish the notice in the pilot for subsequent, for two weeks in a row. As such, the Planning Board heard this in October 2021, recommended approval 7-0. The applicant and general contractor were in attendance and did answer all the questions for the Planning Board. Staff's recommendations that we feel that this request will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed. We feel that it complies with all required standards, conditions, and specs of the UDO, specifically Chapter 4. We feel that it does not substantially injure the value of adjoining property or the special use, and the special use is a public necessity. We feel it's in harmony with the area to which it's located, and we feel that it's generally in conformance with town's adopted policy guidance. Again, these motions are not as specialized as the zoning map amendment, but there are several of them. We can go through them now, Mr. Mayor, or again, Mr. Johnson is available for any questions, as I.
This will be a business, is that correct?
The request is a daycare center, yes, sir.
Does that fall under sidewalks and curbs?
Curbs, no. Well, that's a good question. We would look at that at the technical review committee. There are ways, I'm not gonna say ways, there are exclusions from sidewalks that the applicant may be able to seek, that the TRC, specifically the Public Works Director and myself, could grant. But we'd have to look at that, as we have not seen a site plan yet. We're not sure what he's proposed or what the town will require, because we haven't really dug into that.
Thank you. Will you let us know
Yes,
one way
sir,
or the
absolutely.
other?
So I have a question.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you said you sent out people who live within 300 feet of this property,
Yes, ma'am.
and no one responded negatively or positively, or
For this case, no, ma'am.
you didn't hear
Staff
anything
is,
back from anyone?
for both the zoning map amendment and the special use permit for this particular property, staff did send out, to give you background, we send out a certified letter as well as a first-class letter to both the property owner and the property itself, because sometimes the renters may not be the property owner. And so we'll send out 4 letters per property. In this case, we did 4 letters per property for the special use permit, 4 letters per property for the zoning map amendment. And staff never received a word from any of those on these particular cases. Now, that will not be the same case. We have received feedback from others, but not this special use permit or the zoning map amendment. That's correct.
Because from what I know, when I ride by, there's really just one house. I think Wilma mentioned that that's not the owner that wants to build this daycare.
It
or
is.
It is?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, it is.
So basically, there are really no other homes there, either across the street or even
No, they're
connecting this
behind
property.
it. They're behind
They're
it.
behind those.
So there are
Right,
several,
right.
and 300 feet goes a long
Yeah.
way. And again,
Yeah.
that's beyond the staff,
Yeah,
or that's
this-
beyond the state requirements. So there's, I
Yeah.
believe, the orange property behind it might have a home on it. I know all the homes on Debnan
Mhm.
were notified. Obviously, 300 feet for that particular property goes all the way to Harris. So a couple doors down, we went even a couple doors down. And again, that's well beyond the state's requirement of 100 feet. So we notified everybody, and again, we do run 2 Wednesdays in a row in a legal ad with the pilot, as well as the sign's been out there for,
That's good.
gosh, probably 3 months now.
Just being sure everybody was, okay with it.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a public hearing. Is anyone else? We haven't closed out the public hearing.
Mayor, I just want to, kind of following up with the mayor's question, he's all about walkability in the neighborhoods and up and down streets. I know we have sidewalks to nowhere, so I think it's important that we really strike a balance on what makes sense. With that said, I know we've got the general contractor here, and I know they haven't submitted an application yet, based on having to get through zoning first. But I know in the past, your team has entertained napkin designs from the standpoint of conversations about, okay, this is really kind of what we're thinking, this is where we're at, this is kind of absent of formal submittal. I think it's going to be real important to ensure that we're lockstep with the general contractor, the property owner, the business owner. So this is truly a partnership on how do we get here from there now that the zoning has been approved. It's frustrating both for this board and for the applicants when we get down the road and we start getting to brass tacks. We really start running into surprises, one way or the other, our side, their side. So I really encourage you and your staff, the general contractor, the business owner, to just really get in there and ask all those questions so that there was not an assumption that was made that now makes it extremely difficult for this business to come to fruition. So I think it's important. And I just say that because, the mayor could easily drive by one day and there's no sidewalks, and what happened? And so I think there's an ask of this board too, as we begin to really look at that Berkeley revitalization and really partnering to do the right thing here, that we honor the mayor's ask and make sure that we're kind of kept informed on how the review is going, so that we're excited as they are to open the door and ribbon cut that facility as well, as we are for the police station. Right, Chief? Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you. And you will let us know when you decide, or whatever you delve into to find out about the sidewalk and whatever else may be necessary.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Does the Head Start have a sidewalk?
No, that was,
And there are caveats built into the UDO where somebody can request not putting the sidewalks in, depending on the nature of the area.
I was just thinking if they did have one, it would make it more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fluid.
And that's one of the
Yeah,
things, that
that's
I
right.
believe there's 4 exemptions, and one of them is there's no sidewalks in the area, no plan on the bike and ped plan, which is under development, or if it's an industrial area, or if it's in a residential area, it's exempt from sidewalks. Because we can't go in retroactively and put sidewalks in front of homes, because they will never put them in. There needs to be a trigger. That's the mayor's point, is this is being redeveloped, there needs to be a trigger. So we need to dive into it with the UDO, and we've had conversations with both the applicants, Mr. Johnson as well as Mr. Murchison, about what the town expects, and they're very well aware of the UDO requirements. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're hiring a local engineering firm that does a lot of work through the town. So there should not be any surprises from the applicant or the engineer. But we will do our best and make sure that y'all are duly informed when and if we ever cross that bridge.
This is still the public hearing. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. Right now, there's no sidewalks at all on that strip, right?
Not to my knowledge, no ma'am.
No.
And what further complicates this, assuming, and I'm not sure, maybe Joe could chime in here, because Harold's not here, our hands are also tied depending on who owns the road. Our hands are tied based on who owns the road. The North Carolina NCDOT will not let us put in curb and gutter if it's their road.
Sure.
So again, I don't know that. I have not dove into this process in terms of the site plan. There's been no formal submittal. But the town has no authority to require curb and gutter, and sidewalks may be problematic for NCDOT as well. We did run into that issue with Thomas Tire. If there's no curb and gutter there already, the requirements for NCDOT for a sidewalk goes significantly harder. But again, I will make sure this board is duly informed when and if we cross that bridge.
I think, I may be wrong, but I think Glasgow Street was 15501
I believe so.
at one time.
Joe, are you aware? Is that state or is that ours?
Yeah.
So that's going to add some complications,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that we're, again, whatever I can do with the UDO and the powers to be regarding the road ownership, we'll make sure that we follow that, and I plan on having conversation with Mr. Johnson, Mr. Murchison,
They have,
at a later date.
I'm sure DOT would love to give it up, but I don't think we're in the business of taking over their road right
No, sir.
now.
No, sir.
And that,
They love if we took over a lot of
there's,
different roads.
there's a lot of them that'd be glad to give us, but
Well, I will say that if that area does expand for more businesses, they need to widen that road at some point, because it's a very narrow strip. I've mentioned that to Paul in the past, because there's an area that almost people have run off at the end of that, where it gets into.
if you follow coming off of 1551 up at Bernie's,
Yes.
where the road splits,
Yes,
that road actually was 1551 that went down to South Street. That's how you got into Aberdeen before they turned it and went down where the bridge is. So, in matter of fact, on those two corners down there when it abuts South Street, there's a brick building on the left that caught on fire. And then there was another one on the other side. There were two gas stations there from the days when that was 15501. That little brick building was a gas station, and the other one on the other side's been torn down for a long time. But anyway, anyone else on the public hearing? Anyone? I'll close out the public hearing. We'll go to consider approval of special use permit SU-2101.
Mr. Mayor, there are going to be 6 motions, but none of them are special, so they can just be read off the screen.
I'll make a motion that special use permit will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? That carries.
Special use permit SUP 2101 complies with all required standards, conditions, and specifications of this ordinance, including Chapter 4's uses.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
I make a motion that special, okay. I make a motion that special use permit SUP-21-01 will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property, or the special use is a public necessity.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
I make a motion that the special use permit SUP-21-01 will be in harmony in the area in which it is to be located.
The motion, is there a second? Second, all right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is that all of them?
No, sir, there's 6 of them. There's
Some
7.
more.
Special use permit SU-2101 is in general conformity with the town's adopted policy.
I'll second it.
The motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Motion approval of a special use permit SU 2101.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries. Thank you. Item D, we need to open it and then. Okay, thank you. We're at number D, and that was to be continued, is that right, Paul?
Yes, sir, and I'm going to ask Mr. Westbrook, did you say December was a request for the continuance, the December meeting date?
That's, Dr. Alanubia is here, and he can directly answer that. Dr. Alanubia, would you like to continue the December 13th or the January work session? I'm sorry.
Come up, so it'll be on the record.
It's an honor to see you again, Mr. Mayor and
Good
company.
to see you.
Considering the holidays, January would be better, but we could do it in December. We expect to be closed in the next 30 days or less. So I'm honored to, been an honor to work with Justin and his staff, and just a little bit of housekeeping, and the attorneys almost got it nailed down, and then we'll be ready.
We only meet one time in December. Because
January is fine, Mr. Mayor.
if we could do it in December, if that's works for you, can we?
Mayor,
Right.
I'd recommend you move it to the January
You wanna
work
just move
session.
it?
Just, I mean, 2 weeks is going to fly by. and
Yeah, you
It
wanna-
sounds like they've got a lot to do with the closing, and that's a lot to ask. I just think, and with the holidays, it's just going to be tough.
Okay.
So we could shoot for, do you have that date, Justin, the January work session?
Work session or public regular meeting?
It's up to the board. Y'all
The
can
work
do.
session
session
would be
is
the
fine.
10th, and the regular meeting is the 24th.
Work session's fine with me.
Does work session work for everyone?
Yes.
Okay. That date would be
The
Jan-
10th, January 10th.
January 10th. Does that work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we need a motion, correct, Paul?
Yes, and it would be to continue it to
All
that
right,
meeting.
I'll make a motion that we continue conditional zoning CZ 2102 to our January 10th work session.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, I'll close out D and go to E, consider appointment to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Mayor and board, just for your reference, Adam is out of town this week, but he said that the the memo, there's no changes. You know, there's really been no changes to the applicants, and everything is as discussed, I think, 2 weeks ago with those. So it's just up to the board to make those choices.
Do we have the names
Yes,
anywhere?
we do. We have two names
There were
up
two
for
names.
one position tonight.
Yeah.
So we need to appoint one of these two,
He's going to pull them up on the screen.
okay?
So that's the first one.
Yep, there's one there, and should be another one. There's another one. All right, so there are two names. And this is for the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
And they've applied for other, so they want to be involved.
Well, Mayor, after I reviewed the two applications and the information, I'm certainly comfortable with offering up a motion to the board for Mr. Jose Trinidad Castellanos as the, okay.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Please advise Parks and Rec. Close out E and go to F, consider approval of transfer from the available fund balance to purchase the old Aberdeen Elementary School property in the amount of $920,000.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. What you have before you tonight is an amendment for a transfer from the available fund balance to pay for the remaining portion of the purchase for the old Aberdeen Elementary School, and plus add an additional amount in there. So if there's any unforeseen thing that comes up, we won't have to have a special meeting for the board. So that's something that the manager and I have been talking about, and that's the number we came up with. So I'm requesting that approval of a transfer from available fund balance for the purchase of the old elementary school of basically the remaining amount of $855,000, plus any additional unforeseen expenses. And if we don't use it, it stays in the budget and so it goes back into fund balance.
We have, Paul, we have paid for the survey.
Yes, sir. We allotted, we haven't paid for it yet, but they haven't sent us the bill yet.
Okay.
But we set aside funds, to do that. If you remember the original motion, I think it was for about $60,000, which included 45 down payment toward the 900. So that's still going toward the price. And then we had about $15,000 to cover certain costs. And Butch and I just talked, just in case anything else comes up, a little bit more closing cost money, attorney's fees, or title opinion fees that may be a little bit higher. We don't know that's going to be the case. No indication it's going to be, but that way we can still get it closed without any problem. And as Butch said, whatever's not used just stays in the fund balance.
So are we only transferring 855, or we're transferring the 920?
You've already done 60, is it 60 or 65, Butch? It was 60.
Excuse me,
60,000.
60,000. So you've already done that, so this is the additional amount.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because
That's
it
right,
was
so
wrote
it'll-
different on the agenda, so I just want to make sure we're.
And I would like to say, last year, in the audit for 2020, the unused, unapplied for fund balance was $3,099,000. And it will go up substantially when John Frank comes. You would be very happy.
Okay.
And now, as I remind the board, back about a month and a half ago, when I talked about sales tax, we were 45% over budget on sales tax. And it was more than nothing, just sales tax to purchase the old elementary school.
And also the survey for anything in the ground, that was included in, have you got a bill for that yet?
No bill yet, no, sir.
Okay. Anyone? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the fund transfer of $855,000 for the purchase of the old Aberdeen Elementary School property.
I second it.
All right, it's a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Anyone? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go down to other business, volunteer board appreciation event to be held on Monday, December 6, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Recreation Center.
Mayor, I think we already touched on this. We just wanted to make sure, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's the second one. Mayor, the annual event we have for the volunteer board, we do have set for December 6th this year. And again, it's our intent, unlike last year, we had kind of a drive-through affair at the Parks and Rec building where, because of COVID, we passed out, a takeout kind of dinner. This year, we plan to have a sit-down affair at the Parks and Rec building. It'll be catered. We have plenty of room to spread out and have a meal there, do more of our standard protocol where we recognize the board, thank them for their service, and are able to have a meal. And the planned date is that December 6th on Monday. at 6 PM.
Thank you. And then B on your agenda is the open house for the police facility.
Yes, sir, that's what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, we've already talked, it's on the agenda.
Will there be a program for that, Paul? Like for the police facility opening? You said the mayor would speak.
Just a few remarks.
Okay,
Yeah, just probably a few remarks about 4:30.
So
by
it'll
the mayor
start-
and a few others.
yeah, so the actual program itself will start at 4:30 or 4?
4:30.
Sure.
We also need someone to get in touch with the Pilot newspaper. Make sure somebody's there to take some pictures. We need this publicized.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
So whoever's writing that down, make sure somebody gets up with the newspaper.
Mayor, I'll say loudly, hopefully Jamie's listening. Hello, Jamie, wherever you are, on Zoom. So maybe Jamie can take care of us in the write-up of this article to mention it also.
Yes, yes. And we want to show off this new facility as much as we can, so I know the pilot will be there. Let's see, any other old business, anyone?
He's already said he got the message, so we're.
Oh,
Christmas tree lighting will
yes,
happen before we meet
Christmas tree
again.
lighting. Do you might know when Christmas tree lighting?
December the 2nd,
December 2nd.
and then the Christmas parade is December the 11th.
11th,
That's right. And again, if you have not been through downtown, please do and see all the lights. It looks wonderful. Any other business?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Mayor,
that's right, you've got yours.
yes, sir. Mayor and Board, I gave you a piece of paper. It's kind of been brought to my attention by some of the downtown business owners that they don't know the entire board when it comes to us as a whole. So this is a concept that you got before you that I'd like to propose that this board do. Now, this is not to replace the DAB or the DAC. This is in addition to. This is a quarterly meeting with the Board of Commissioners and the business owners of downtown. Maybe we could have it over at the rec station, where we can break out into 6 different tables where we can individually meet with business owners quarterly to just kind of discuss their concerns, where they see what their goals and objectives are for downtown. It's not to plan events or anything like that. That's between the business owners and the DAC and the DAB. This is just more of an open door kind of policy where we can just hear where they think downtown's going, where they'd like for it to go. And I'd like to possibly start this sometime maybe in March after we get done with our budget season and everything that's going on. So I'd like to propose this as an opportunity to this board and see what kind of feedback you guys have in regards to this.
Now, would this be sponsored by the town?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be a quarterly meeting where we would all attend. We'd sit down, like I said, we'd have 6 tables. Each one of us would sit at a table. The business owners would come in and sit down, and then the next quarter, they would rotate and go to a different table. So that way, we're not meeting with the same ones every time. And then we would try to, and I can work out all the details with Paul and Regina as far as how the minutes, but I figured we would kind of elect somebody at the table to take minutes of what was discussed at that table, bring that back so that it can be published, because I know it will be a quorum of this board. So
And it would have to be
Yes,
advertised?
it will have to be advertised.
Is this is for downtown businesses only?
Yeah.
or-
Right now, yes, yeah, because downtown is starting to grow, and we've gotten some momentum, and I'd like to see that momentum keep going. I don't want it to die off because of something that's going on. I'd like to see the growth continue.
So it being a town-sponsored event, we'd have to have minutes taken?
Yes,
And it'd have
and
to
that's
be-
why I said we
has
would
to
have
be
to elect
advertised.
someone at each table to take the minutes and then report those minutes back to whoever's there, to whether it's Regina or her counterpart, so that those minutes could be recorded.
Mayor, I had a chance to walk downtown last week with Christian and just really kind of a walkabout farewell tour, but really absorb the progress over the last 8 years from my perspective. And I applaud Brian and the board for being open to something like this. That's something that I know as a board member, it's hard to do. It's hard to find that opportunity to connect with business owners and just build relationships on that elected official level. So I applaud the suggestion. I hope the board moving forward will be able to support it.
Sounds like a good idea. Does anyone else want to comment on this?
I will say that I've spoken to several of the business owners in downtown, and they're really open to this. They think it's a really good idea.
I know when we have special events, I always do my best to make a opportunity to speak with the business owners, to go in and actually address them. I think I've done that with South Street and most of Maine. But sometimes there's other people working. The owner may not always be in the business, you know, they may be having it run by some other. So this will be nice. I look forward to this.
How
me-
far, I'm sorry,
No, I was gonna say, it sounds like a great idea.
how far in advance does this have to be publicized? And that would be how? On the website, or how would you announce this?
So we always send meeting notifications to our, what we call our sunshine list. That's what clerks call it, but that would include all of our media sources and anyone else who has requested to be on that list. So that's how we notice our meetings to the public, and it just has to be done 48 hours in advance.
Okay. And how would we decide what date? So she would know when to advertise it?
Well, that's why I was doing it back, starting it in March, so that we would have time to work out any of the kinks with staff, and then we could come out of this board with setting the quarterly dates. We could go ahead and set a calendar, get a calendar set, and then we can notify the business owners of when those dates are. I was thinking more maybe in the afternoon, maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe about our same meeting time, because a lot of the businesses are closed. The DAC, I think, meets is it the second Monday or first Monday? Yeah, they meet during the mornings, but I think we could do this one in the afternoon, 5:30, 6 o'clock. And like I was saying, I'm only proposing an hour from start to finish.
And we'd have to make sure we stay off of Mondays.
Yes, yeah.
And we do our strategic planning meeting in March, do we not? We do it around that time, is there? Yeah, so,
That's a great point. The strategic planning meeting historically, formally, has been every 3 years, when we review the goals and objectives that were adopted and are now at 3 years. What you're gonna have, though, is your budget retreat. So
Yeah,
you'll be
in
able
March.
to have an opportunity to really get some feedback, look at priorities of effort, and you know, move forward based on what you get from requirements and from this.
well, I was just thinking it could be in conjunction with that, if it's only gonna be an afternoon session, because sometimes we're through by 1. You know, I don't know, I was just thinking, because we did have a business owner at our last one, but, you know, not that we wouldn't welcome others, but I was just making, rather than have 2 meetings in March, and like the mayor
But I was
says,
saying, we normally don't have a strategic planning.
no, we just have our
meeting,
budget.
Just the budget, and then we have that, this proposed.
Okay.
We just
That'd
have,
be good.
we have to make sure that it works for enough owners to show up. I
Right.
mean, they're busy.
Yeah.
I've talked to 5 business owners downtown so far that is willing to come. Now, I'm just saying, if we have the first one and we only get 1 or 2, then we can always justify not having any more.
Well,
So, yeah.
you said they meet once a month anyway, right?
Yes.
Could we not be in conjunction with their meeting then? So that, since they already are planning to come to that meeting?
No,
Probably not?
no, no. We need to keep the DAB and the DAC meetings completely separate.
Yeah.
This is not to be
Okay,
part of their.
Wonderful.
their downtown planning. This is just,
Just have to make sure that it's worthwhile to the business owners to be there, and we can get the most of them there.
Yeah.
And just like you said, if it's just not a good time for some of them, you know, just a few show up, we just have to work this thing out.
yeah,
Well, it's a good idea, you know,
Yes.
it's worth trying, but, you know, we do have small businesses sprinkled around, you know, maybe in the big lots area, there's small businesses, other small businesses, so if they'd like to be included, maybe we could think about at some point.
yeah, I mean, we
bringing
can
some other
expand it. That's
folks
why I
in.
brought it up. It's a discussion. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if the board wants to move forward, then I'll get with Paul and Regina, and we'll kind of work out all the details. I'm just thinking we got a lot of downtown motion, forward motion right now, and I don't want to see it slow down. I want to see what their goals and their objectives are for, on what they'd like to see and how we'd like to move forward.
Anyone else? Anyone else with other business?
I guess I got a consensus to move forward with this?
Well,
My lord.
well, no, he was asking, does he have a consensus? I think we all agreed it's a
Okay,
good idea.
all right. Okay.
Yeah, yes, ma'am, it's you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.